Okay, so this is the Town of Fairfield Land Acquisition Commission. It is Wednesday, July 22nd at 6 o'clock. My name is Mike Widmer, Chair of the Land Acquisition Commission, and we will formally start and call the meeting to order. I actually do have a flag here, so we'll say a quick Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. So now an official welcome to everyone, and I really hope that everyone is well and hanging in there. Certainly we are all navigating uncharted waters in real time. But life does continue on. Having our Land Acquisition Commission meeting, which we had to cancel in March or in April, having it is a kind of a return to normalcy. So I appreciate everyone joining me today. First order of business will be the approval of the minutes from January 22nd. Do I have a motion or any discussion?
Linda, Jeff, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, that was a motion by Jeff. Is there a second?
Second by Linda.
Thank you, Linda. Okay. We did meet in January. There was a lot to discuss and review. Are there any comments on the or discussion on the minutes themselves? Without seeing any or hearing any, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes from January 22nd, say aye.
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 Aye. Sounds like it passed unanimously. Thank you all for that. Moving forward, the chairman's report. That would be me. It has been an interesting number of months since we last met, and during that time, we lost Bob Daly. Bob Daly, former Land Acquisition Commission, passed away in April. I sent you all a note on this. I had spoken to his wife, Frances, and, really sad. Bob had been a Land Acquisition Commission member for 2 years, joined in January 2018, and he brought a lot to the board. Those of you who sat in meetings with Bob as we reviewed and discussed and debated land and parcels around the town, he always brought a analytical, lawyerly approach to the discussion, and always had a couple of questions that certainly made me think, and I know Brian Carey as well. So just a quick thought on Bob Daly. We'll miss him, and may he rest in peace. Secondly, I did want to formally welcome both Cassandra Marshall and Nick Mirable. They will be our two alternate members on the Land Acquisition Commission. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. Really, since January, when Trey and Kevin joined us, we've had 4 new members. And to have a complete commission with 7 full-time and 2 alternate commission members is actually something of a novelty for us. So it's exciting. It's some new voices. It's maybe some new ideas, and look forward to moving forward with everyone on board. So my next item here was current vacancies, and we don't have any. That is awesome. So we are fully staffed and good to go there. We did in January talk about the TPZ Plan of Conservation and Development, the POCD Plan of Conservation and Development. There were some public workshops that were going to be held. Brian, I'm not sure if you're muted or not, but maybe are you able to maybe just update us on where the Plan of Conservation and Development is and what next steps are?
I think it's stalled right now because the commission hadn't been meeting. I have been kind of providing a little bit of feedback between now and January, but I'm not quite sure where it is in the process. Okay. They do have a deadline to get that done. So Emmeline Harrigan's been working on it, and they were having meetings in February, and then the pandemic happened, so I think they're just kind of at a standstill at this point.
What's Emmeline's last name?
Harrigan.
You know, I sit on the Mill River Wetland Committee board with Mary Hogue, and I know that she's been involved, and certainly you've spoken to her as well, that there might be a need for an open space definition, perhaps in that POCD. I guess I can reach out to Emmeline on that, perhaps, on that topic?
Yes.
Okay, great. So that's developing, and that would certainly maybe involve us and perhaps have, you know, some ideas for the town over the next 10 years as to what the town should be doing with land acquisition and open space protection. Along those same lines, Brian, if you're still on unmute, really the state of Connecticut open space 2020 funding, this was a kind of a question mark back in the fall and even in January as to what the state might be providing this year. Is there any clarity on that?
No. None, unfortunately.
Yeah, as expected.
I think what I think they did, because they weren't sure about the funding, was that they actually ended up funding more projects this year than they were planning on the backside. So I don't know where it's going to go from here.
Okay, good.
Can you clarify, when you say they, are we talking about the state of Connecticut, and if so, like what division?
The DEP, Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection, the Open Space Management Division.
Do we have a contact there that Fairfield has a relationship with?
Yes, Allison Clark.
Okay.
There used to be 2 people in that position, and now there's only 1. And I will say that their bandwidth is pretty low at the moment.
I would imagine, yeah. And as far as the 2019 funds, have we been reimbursed for most everything that we had out?
No. So since that 760 Oldfield Road purchase, I am still waiting on them to provide comments and revisions on the map that we submitted over a year ago.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it just seems like everything is on extended hold right now. All right. And then just lastly, just on a broad note, I did speak to really the Land Acquisition Commission as a whole last time. I mean, it's been in place since '97. Funding for it is minimal. The town does not have anything in place right now that funds open space except for what we do through Brian and the state of Connecticut and where we get creative. With 4 new commission members, you know, maybe there is discussion this year. We've talked about really trying to flesh out an opportunity for us to approach the town for some sort of consistent funding. And again, you know, is the town in that position right now? I'm not sure. A lot has happened since we last met. But it's something for each of you guys to consider and think about ways that we can get creative. As members of this commission, it's important for us to keep our eyes open and certainly think of ideas. I would encourage everyone on this commission to keep an eye on the TPZ, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and their agenda, the Conservation Commission and their agenda, just so that you know what's going on in town and you can be aware. So that is my report. We'll get into some new business. I neglected to mention that we do have a member of the public on with us today, Francis Sweeney, who actually represents one of our old business properties, 760 Oldfield Road. So, no, excuse me, 995 South Pine Creek Road. Excuse me, my mistake. Welcome, Mr. Sweeney. Can someone mute themselves, please? Hold on one second. Thank you. Can everyone still hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving forward, we do have a piece of new business on our agenda tonight, 3581 Blackrock Turnpike. This, as I understand it, I'll ask Brian to maybe help bring us up to speed on this. This is a .40 acre piece of property on Blackrock Turnpike, up near Swedish Motor Works or in that neighborhood. The adjacent property owner reached out to the town about perhaps purchasing this piece of property. It seems to be somewhat of an orphan town-owned piece of property on Blackrock Turnpike. They currently access another of their properties with a right-of-way across this piece of property. And so we're being approached to look at the opportunity to perhaps sell it. I'm not sure what's happened since then. This, I think, was initiated back in February or March. Brian, do you want to bring us up to speed, perhaps?
Sorry, muted. Yeah, so that the adjacent landowner who actually has, there's actually a unimproved driveway that goes through the parcel. The piece of land, I believe, is the right-of-way, extended right-of-way from the street in the back. And he is looking to try to purchase the land so that he can put it, attach it to his existing property.
Right.
You know, the town doesn't really have any use for it. I think there's a pipe that might run through it. We're still kind of researching that. But it's not anything that we maintain or use for any specific purpose.
Right. So
has he been informed that it would go up for auction if it went up for sale? Because I noticed it abuts the Blackrock Congregational Church property, and they might also be a bidder on this property, which might be to his detriment.
Yes, so I explained to him the process that the town normally does to sell this, that would go to selling this, and he is aware of that. It actually does not, it is not contiguous with the Blackrock Turnpike. Oh, I'm sorry, it is contiguous with the Blackrock Congregational Church.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure he knew what he was opening up when he was asking this.
Yeah, and so just one thought I had, or just one confirmation. I mean, we've been down this road actually a couple of times over the past few years with orphan piece of properties that the town owns, where adjacent property owners are looking to perhaps purchase those properties, and we have moved in that direction. Does this property, it isn't adjacent to any other open space in town, is it, Brian?
No.
Do you know how we acquired it?
No. Let me see if I can tell right now.
It looked on the card like we'd owned it since 1800. Like it was a piece of the road up above it. Like it's a right of way that would have made another road.
It's definitely a part of the right of way to the other road. I'd have to go pull the deed. They don't. Right. This doesn't. It's got the volume page, but it doesn't have the date. My guess is either the right of way or it was taken through tax foreclosure.
Right. The shape of it really looks like a right of way.
Yes, correct.
Right. So when the property owner approaches us, I know that there's a need for a couple different appraisals on it. What do you need from us, or are our wheels already turning on perhaps talking to him?
No. So it hasn't really been elevated anywhere other to you guys. You would just need to make a motion if a favorable motion or unfavorable motion if you want to move it to the next level, which would be going to the administration and seeing they have an appetite for it.
Right, and maybe perhaps going down the road of having 2 appraisals done?
Yes, correct.
Did you look at all on the GIS site for Fairfield? Because it really is not a building lot of any sort.
No, it's not a
strip
building
of land
lot. So in this case, we would probably just do one appraisal and then put it out to bid. I only get 2 appraisals when the state's involved with the purchase of the property.
Okay.
Right.
And in terms of the cost, this is Kevin, the cost of the appraisals or any other transaction costs, would we write into the purchase and sale agreement that he'd be on the hook for those, or would the town be footing the bill on those and taking it out of the proceeds?
That's correct. We foot the appraisal cost anywhere between $500 to $1,000, and then that's they pay the closing costs obviously on the property,
yeah,
which are minimal, which is really just title insurance and then their lawyer. So there's not a lot of cost for the town to divest property.
And then is it pretty clean in terms of, Brian, you said there's some pipe underground or something like that. I mean, I don't know how long it's been since any kind of assessment's been done on the property itself and what he may want to do with it. Is it pretty clean in terms of any potential for ongoing obligation if there's something uncovered after he purchases it?
So we would do title search. They would do a title search as part of the RFP. If there was some type of easement that exists on the property that has any type of town drainage, obviously we would make sure that we would, if there was a pipe on our property, we would put an easement on it before going out to RFP, so there wouldn't be any issue with that. I truthfully, I've only walked on the property once. The adjacent gas station actually is kind of encroaching onto the property already.
Mm-hmm.
I think this gentleman is just trying to preserve his access. He wants to pave it and things like that, is what he's claiming. No, I don't see there being much of an issue with any type of pipes or infrastructure that the town has on that.
And then even and this is just kind of thinking out loud, but I would assume, like any other property sale, once we're clear, I mean, he probably would have right to inspect. I mean, what if the gas station has contaminated a corner of the property that we don't know about? Things like that we just want to make sure we're clear of. But as long as we're clean on that and the contracting and the sale, we don't have any potential for him to come back to us and say, hey, 25% of the property has been contaminated by the gas station and now you owe me to remediate it, right? As long as we're clean on that stuff, I think those would be the risks I'd be concerned about.
So it's up to the buyer to do the due diligence.
Yep.
If he wanted to do a phase 1 or something, that would be on him to do that. Mm-hmm. It's not something the town would do. And I have to look. I can't remember. I think the last time we sold property, it was through, I think it is a warranty deed, but we wouldn't be warrantying against it from contamination. I don't know. If he wanted to buy it, that's, again, on him to do the due diligence.
Any other questions or thoughts from commission members?
Are there wetlands on it? I don't remember now what I read, because it is possible he can merge it with his other lot. The one that's up front.
There is a setback on the property, but it does not appear to actually have wetland soil on the property.
Okay. I would present a motion that we look forward towards selling it.
A second.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we want to just perhaps rephrase it with move the wheels. Brian, your next step would be to approach who on this?
So it would just really go to the administration, and then I would say, hey, listen, the land acquisition got a request. They looked at it. They think it's they don't have any use for it. Wouldn't have to go to conservation or anything. It's not open space. I would just have to bring the request to them, and if they wanted to put it out, they put it out. I generally ask for comments from the town engineer and the zoning department before we get anything, just to make sure that they don't see an issue with it for one reason or another. But then I would just, basically bring them the motion and all the backup information and let them decide how they want to move forward.
Okay, and I apologize. There is a motion that's been seconded on the floor. Just one other point of discussion. Could we have the money from the sale of this property earmarked to the Land Acquisition Fund or the Grace Richardson Conservation Fund? Have we done that before?
They have generally done that at the Board of Selectmen level. I've never requested that they do that.
Okay.
Mike, what is the motion for?
And the property is currently appraised at $63,000.
Motion to move forward with a recommendation that the town sell it and get the appraisals to start the process.
Okay, so a revised motion there. I'd like to sound that. Is there a second?
Yes, this is Kevin. I'll second that.
Great.
Who was that?
Additional discussion, questions?
Who seconded that?
Kevin seconded it. Kevin Homick.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Without any other discussion, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion on the floor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any opposition? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, folks. And just as an FYI, the meeting is being recorded. Adam, if you need to get that motion, it'll be on the recording as well.
Cool.
Great. Thank you. We will move on to new business. We'll move on to old business. First up is two parcels, 3724 and 3726 Post Road. These were brought before us last time at our last meeting as new business. They are two parcels, as Brian had explained to us, that historically have been underwater near Bulkley Pond, but are now dry marshland since the earthen dam that was there had given way. Ownership of them was, I'm not sure if it was apparent or not, but Brian, as last we left it, you were going to talk to the town attorney and do a title search. Is there any update?
I do not have an update at this time, but I have been in touch about this. The Sasquatch people actually reached out to me to try to facilitate this, and I'm also talking with. They're looking at maybe getting a grant from Aspetuck to maybe put in another area up there. They're looking for to acquire some additional open space. The people who own this it's back on taxes, so either they, I don't think the town is going to look to. I don't think they're going to want to relieve that tax debt. So that's a question that's a conversation I need to have with the administration.
If someone like Aspetuck was to come along and purchase those properties or help Sasquatch purchase, would they assume the tax liability?
So if it goes to Aspetuck or Sasquatch, it's a nonprofit, so there'd be no taxes. They'd have to settle the outstanding taxes at the closing.
Okay.
So, those property owners would have to come out of pocket to sell it to whoever. So they probably wouldn't. If we take it through tax foreclosure, it just takes forever, and obviously there's costs to the town to file all of those motions in court for foreclosure. It takes about I don't even know now how long it would take. It normally takes about 6 to 10 months when things are normal, but I don't imagine they would come out of the the woodwork to try to salvage that property. But again, we would have to do appraisals and bring it to court, and there's obviously, legal costs for the town. I think that's why there's not really a tendency to kind of move it so long, because it's just like let's leaving dogs lie.
Yep. And I suggested the last time that we table this, and I guess we'll continue to table it and just keep an eye on it and bring it back up at our next meeting in October and see where it stands.
Yeah, I'm dealing with a couple other things at the moment that where I could get this. We can definitely have I'll have an update in October for sure. Yeah,
I'd imagine most of I'm not sure if there's been a lot of movement with a lot of these properties, but we'll move forward. And does anyone have any questions on the Post Road properties in Southport? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to 995 South Pine Creek Road. This is a .027 acre piece of property that we've discussed. I think we discussed it late last year. Had hazardous waste cleaned up, remediated by the state in 1998. Currently being environmentally monitored by the Connecticut by the state. It is a building lot. It's adjacent to town-owned open space. What is the latest on this, Brian?
I think the last time we met on this, there wasn't really an appetite to go forward with any type of transaction or purchase of the property, and then it just didn't really move forward from there.
Okay. That's where we had left it. Anyone have any questions on 99?
Brian, can you just give me an update on why there was no appetite for that?
I think there is concerns about the status of the environmental issue on the property, I think they were asking, whatever the amount they were looking for was more than the town was willing to commit at the time.
Any other questions on South Pine Creek Road from the commission members? I can tell you it was on the market from before 84. No? It is an approved building lot. Okay. All right. We'll move forward. 760 Oldfield Road. Brian, this is closed. We're waiting for reimbursement from the state. I kept it on there because we talked about maybe putting a bird blind on the property. I don't know if that had ever happened or not.
That has not happened. I'm still dealing with the charity who wanted to do that, and we're just trying to draw up plans at the moment. But I am in the process of trying to settle the transaction with the DEP so that they can get us reimbursed for the grant funds.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts on 760 Oldfield Road?
Which charity is that?
Okay.
It's called the Tucker Fund.
Thank you.
And then we get into some older pieces of property. I'm not sure, 1150 Westport Turnpike. This one we could probably take off the old business. These lots have been approved and set aside. Is there anything new with this?
Nope. We have that all went through the RTM, and the set aside properties are now they're owned by the town.
Right. Okay. Done. Okay. So that is good, and that's adjacent to Brett Woods.
Correct.
Perfect. Any questions on 1150 Westport Turnpike? Okay, 145 Grace Street. This one is another one that is not necessarily neat and clean, but this was a 0.11 acre piece of property up above kind of Nutmeg Bowl. Do we have anything new on this? I know there were some issues with it.
Yeah, so that is that is something that needs to go to the RTM for final acceptance. We're still kind of. It was required as part of the inland wetland application, but we're debating whether or not we want to actually take that parcel at the moment. But it needs to go to RTM for their approval before moving forward.
Okay. Who brings it to RTM? You or?
Yes.
Okay.
Me.
Got it. Any questions or discussion on 145 Grace? Okay. Last two. 373 Cross Highway was another piece of property that came before us because there was perhaps an opportunity to purchase this property, and it's adjacent to the Binger open space. It's 2.21 acres. Perhaps a state grant to cover up to 50% of the cost. But we were waiting to see maybe if funds became available. Is that correct?
Correct.
Brian?
That is correct.
Do you know if it's still for sale?
There's been some interest in, yes, there's continued interest to sell to the town.
Okay. But we don't know if there's going to be state funds available for it.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts on 373 Cross Highway? Okay. Last property that we have as old business is 3250 North Street, and this was another piece of property that was 3.66 acres up. It is adjacent to Brett Woods, but the owner was looking to sell it. It was on the market for $2.25, I believe. Anything new on this property, Brian?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Another one that would make sense if we had state funds to facilitate a purchase. It is adjacent to existing open space, which is always a positive. But it is I believe it's approved building lot too.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts on 3250 North Street? Okay. Seeing none. Are there any other questions or thoughts in general to be brought before land acquisition?
Mike, this is Kevin. I did have one just thought to the funding point that we discussed earlier. And this is a little bit outside the box, and I don't know if it'll fly, but it's just something I've been thinking about recently. So I had a client way back that was a cell phone tower provider. Lots of nonprofits, churches, farmers, landowners all over the country give easements to cell phone tower companies and or directly to the wireless companies to build towers on their land and then just enter into long-term leases for decent rates, depending on the location, the population, how many pieces of equipment are going to go on there, and there's diligence we as a potential provider would have to do to understand the market value. But something like that could be a decent idea for us, and we have to do it carefully. And I know it may rub up against the face of conservation, but if you did it the right way, we have a lot of large enough open space. One of them happens to be behind my house in Perry's Mill Pond, where you could put a cell tower in the middle and nobody would see it from existing properties, which is probably the number one pushback we would get from the public. Number two being just the overall impact to conservation and how would we do it correctly. But if I just think about it and say, what's the greater good argument? If we could find a couple places in town, especially with 5G rollout now kind of going up dramatically in the next year to 2 to 3, I would think there might be some interest in a town like ours with a population like ours where additional service capacity would be marketable for tower providers and or the wireless companies. So it's just something for me that I think would be good passive income, and we could say, hey, if we did this, let's say we got 2 of them on different locations in the town, wind up earning a few $1,000s a month on it, all of a sudden we have a little bit more funding for, could be split between us and conservation in general.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, that is a new idea for sure. I would imagine the town does have partnerships already in place. It's an interesting thought with 5G rollout, what the expanded need is going to be for some of these cellular companies. Brian, any thought on existing towers and how that works, or if that's an option?
Yeah, so we have looked at that in the past, and we do have existing cell phone networks in town that are on town property. There's actually the Bronson Road windmill is actually a cell tower, if you look at it closely, and there's a handful of other ones. We recently had interest in kind of putting a cell phone tower on the north side of Brett Woods. But back in the day, these things were a bonanza. Especially, I used to site cell towers in my private industry time, and when I was working in Stratford, the lease rates for them were, $50,000 to $70,000 a year, 20 years ago. The cell phone tower, what they want to pay you for a lease now, doesn't really make it worth it doesn't really make it worth all of the grumbling that would go on to site something like, let's say, in Brett Woods. They were willing to pay us like $18,000 a year to site that on town property. And we looked at it and we're like, that's not, if it was $50,000 a year, it might be worth it, but for 18, no. I think the town has literally tried to stick a cell phone tower on any structure they can to garner that type of lease agreement where it makes sense. But it does require quite a bit of infrastructure to lay down. So putting it into remote areas, the cell phone companies have said it doesn't make sense, because we have looked at that. We were trying to get to see if they could put them up on the catenary wires in the Brett Woods area, and they just said the cross country, the length they'd have to travel cross country didn't make a lot of sense for them. But that your suggestion is well noted, and where we have, we do, and we're always, when they come up, it's some cell phone company provider comes to the town and approaches us, we do review it and see if it makes sense on a financial basis with also a livability aspect.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I hear you on the rates. I think also sometimes the rates are only as good as the landowner's knowledge. There's lots of times where the landowner doesn't realize that every provider is going to put a piece of equipment on that same tower, and there's going to be 4 or 5 devices on there, giving the tower company $2,000 or $3,000 a month, and all of a sudden the landowner's getting, $1,000 a month.
Nothing.
And they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea the delta and the profit margin in between. And there's actually small private consultants out there who help people understand that gap and value it and get what they actually deserve. So it's just something I want to raise, but it sounds like you guys have definitely gone down the road a number of times, and it's been well thought through.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kevin, for raising that. Again, that's the kind of thinking I think that we want to try to encourage, that where there might be an opportunity for us to look at ways that the town could maybe fund open space acquisition and land acquisition. So thank you for that. Any other questions or thoughts or comments? Well, again, thank you all for being here tonight. Our next Land Acquisition Commission meeting is October 28th. And we will, that'll be here before we know it. So do I have a motion to dismiss? To adjourn. Someone?
I motion that we adjourn.
Thank
Linda.
you. Linda. Second?
Kevin, I'll second.
I'll second the motion.
Great. And all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Aye. Good night, everyone.
Passes unanimously. Thank you all for being here. The Land Acquisition Commission meeting for July 22nd is now officially adjourned. talk to you all soon. Please reach out to me if I can be of any help, and appreciate the input. And thanks, Brian.
Thanks,
Take
Brian.
care.
Thanks, Mike. Nice
Thanks,
job.
everybody.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.